All right, we're about to go on a hunt for the single most influential scientific paper ever written. Now, you're probably thinking it's some mind-bending paper that completely rewrote the laws of the universe. But trust me, the answer is going to be a huge surprise. Let's get into it.
So just take a second and think about it. What do you think is the most cited scientific paper of all time? I bet your mind immediately goes to some massive game-changing discovery, right?
A really solid guess, for sure, would be something from Einstein. I mean, his work on relativity fundamentally changed how we see everything. Space, time, gravity. It's literally the definition of a scientific revolution. He's got to be a top contender. Or, hey, what about Watson and Crick's paper on the structure of DNA from 1953? That discovery unlocked the code of life itself. It kicked off the entire era of molecular biology. It's an icon. That one has to be it, right?
Well, look, both of those papers are absolutely legendary. History makers. But here's the thing. Neither of them is the most cited. The actual winner, the undisputed champion, isn't some grand theory about the cosmos or the blueprint for life. It's something a lot more practical.
And here it is, folks, the heavyweight champion of scientific citations. Protein measurement with a falling phenol reagent, published way back in 1951. Yeah, it doesn't exactly have a catchy ring to it, does it? It sounds less like a world-changing breakthrough and more like a recipe you'd find in a dusty old lab textbook.
So what on earth is this paper, and how did it become the most referenced piece of scientific work in human history? Let's break down what the Lowry Paper actually is and what it did for the world of science.
So here's the big secret. The paper didn't offer some grand new idea. It gave scientists a recipe, a super simple, super reliable way to figure out how much protein is in a sample. Seriously, think of it like a cookbook for chemists. You follow a few steps, your solution changes color, and boom, the darkness of that color tells you exactly how much protein you've got.
Now, to really understand just how massive its influence was, you have to understand how we measure impact in science. And in the world of research, the main currency of influence is the citation. Every single time a new study builds on an older one, it has to cite it, creating this huge interconnected web of knowledge. So, the Lowry paper, it's been cited over 305,000 times. Just let that number sink in for a moment. That is more than 300,000 different research projects, different discoveries that at some point relied on this one simple method. It's staggering.
And believe it or not, this whole business of tracking citations has a name: bibliometrics. It's basically the science of science, using data to see which ideas catch on and which papers become the foundation for everything that comes after.
And this idea isn't even new. It actually got its start in the legal world way back in the 1870s to track which court cases were the most influential. But for science, the big moment was in the 1960s with the creation of the Science Citation Index. That's when we could finally, with hard data, see the true gigantic footprint of a paper like Lowry's.
Okay, so who were the masterminds behind this unbelievably influential paper? You might be picturing a team of scientific rock stars, but the real story is so much better. Let's meet this very unlikely team.
Okay, so the lead author, Oliver Lowry, he was a well-respected chemist. But check out his co-authors. Neera Rosebrew? She was just an undergraduate student at the time. A. Lewis Farr? He left the world of research to become a doctor in private practice. And Rose Randall, a lab assistant, never published another scientific paper in her life. This wasn't a super team of Nobel winners. They were just regular people in a lab doing good, careful work. And it's amazing. Both Neera and Rose lived well into their 90s, just passing away in 2022.
And here's the kicker. Even Oliver Lowry himself didn't think this paper was his greatest achievement. He thought it was a useful little method, sure, but he didn't see it as his most important contribution to science. Turns out the rest of the world felt very differently.
So why? Why did this specific recipe become an absolute essential? What made the Lowry method the default technique in labs all around the globe for decades? Well, the answer is all about the power of a good, simple, reliable tool.
You have to understand, before this paper came out, measuring protein was a huge pain. It was complicated, the results were all over the place, and it took forever. The Lowry method just wiped all that away. It turned a fundamental but frustrating task into something that was simple, reliable, and super efficient.
The method itself is just a beautifully simple chemical recipe. You basically mix your sample with a couple of chemicals in the right order. The real magic happens when certain parts of the protein, these amino acids, react and produce this really intense blue color. The more protein you have, the deeper the blue. It was so straightforward that pretty much any lab anywhere could do it perfectly.
So really, its success wasn't an accident. It was the perfect storm. It was a simple, easy recipe that actually worked, giving results you could trust. It solved a problem that basically every biologist and biochemist on the planet was facing. And because of that, it became what's known as a default citation. If your work involved proteins, you pretty much had to use this method. And that meant you had to cite this paper.
You know, the story of the Lowry paper really teaches us a deep lesson about what impact really means in science. It's just a fantastic look at how progress actually happens, step by step.
And that, right there, is the biggest takeaway. A scientific breakthrough isn't always some lightning bolt of pure genius that changes a theory. Sometimes the most important contribution you can make is just a really well-made tool, a tool that lets thousands of other scientists go out and make their own discoveries. The Lowry paper didn't give the world the answer. It gave everyone else a way to find their answers.
So I'll just leave you with this to chew on. What really defines a breakthrough? Is it the one brilliant singular idea, or is it maybe the humble practical tool that lets a whole generation of scientists build the future? Thanks for watching.